Take out your phone right now and look at your apps. You probably have a banking app. Chase, Bank of America, maybe Wells Fargo. Now look for the green mermaid, the Starbucks app. When you look at that logo, you think you are looking at a fast food app. You think you are looking at a company that buys coffee beans, roasts them, pours hot water over them, and sells them to you at a markup. That is the surface level illusion. That is the camouflage the organism uses to blend into the retail environment. The truth is something completely different. Starbucks is not a coffee company. Behind the espresso machines and the drive-through windows, Starbucks is quietly operating as one of the largest, most sophisticated, and completely unregulated financial institutions in the world. Today, we are going to break down the hidden economics of the coffee cup. We are going to look at the psychological loyalty trap that tricked millions of people into giving a corporation a massive 0% interest loan. And we are going to reveal the breakage mechanism that turns your forgotten pocket change into pure, unadulterated corporate profit. To understand how a coffee shop mutated into a bank, you have to look at the limitations of the food and beverage biome. Selling food is a brutal, high-friction environment. The margins are thin. The inventory rots. Coffee beans go stale. Milk spoils. You have to pay rent on thousands of physical locations, pay thousands of baristas, and constantly fight off local competition. For the first few decades of its life, Starbucks played this game beautifully. Howard Schultz, the architect of modern Starbucks, built the company around a concept called the third place. You had home, you had work, and Starbucks was the third place. It was a social ecosystem. They sold you an atmosphere and charged a premium for the coffee to fund it. They became an apex predator in the retail space. But retail, as we've established, has a ceiling. No matter how many lattes you sell, you are still bound by the physical limits of how fast a human being can steam milk. To break past that ceiling, the organism had to evolve. It needed a new way to acquire capital that didn't rely on physical limitations. In 2001, Starbucks introduced the Starbucks card, a physical gift card. A few years later, they digitized it and tied it to a mobile app. On the surface, this looked like a standard loyalty program. Put money on the card, buy coffee, earn stars, get a free muffin. It's a basic psychological gamification loop. But inside the corporate accounting department, this digital card fundamentally rewired the DNA of the entire company. Let's look at the actual transaction mechanics of the Starbucks app. When you want to buy a $5 coffee, you don't just swipe your credit card for $5. The app strongly incentivizes you to preload funds. You put $25 on your Starbucks app, and then you spend $5 on the coffee. For you, it feels like a simple convenience. You still have $20 left for next time. But look at this transaction from the perspective of Starbucks. You just gave them $25 in hard cash. They gave you a $5 coffee. What happens to the other 20? It sits in their ecosystem. It is no longer your money. Legally, you have traded US dollars for Starbucks currency, digital credits that can only be redeemed for coffee and pastries. Now scale that up. Millions of people all over the world loading $15, $25, or $50 onto their apps every single week. At any given moment, Starbucks is holding approximately $1.6 billion in preloaded customer cash. Let me put that number in perspective. $1.6 billion is more cash than the deposits held by 85% of all legitimate registered banks in the United States. Customers have voluntarily handed Starbucks a multi-billion-dollar pile of cash, and in return, Starbucks gave them nothing but digital IOUs for future frappuccinos. If you put your money in a savings account at Chase Bank, Chase has to pay you interest. That is the cost of borrowing your money. When you put your money in the Starbucks app, you get zero interest. Starbucks has engineered the holy grail of corporate finance, a massive, perpetual 0% interest loan from the public. They can take that $1.6 billion and use it to build new stores, invest in new markets, or just let it sit in a real bank and collect the interest for themselves. They bypassed the entire financial system. They built a bank hiding in plain sight, using caffeine as the bait. But the economics of this organism get even darker, because we aren't just talking about a 0% interest loan. We are talking about the psychological flaw of human memory. When you have $3.14 left on your Starbucks app and a coffee costs $4, what do? You don't abandon the account. The app forces you to reload another minimum of $10 to complete the transaction. You are trapped in a perpetual cycle of leftover balances. You will mathematically never hit exactly $0. And eventually, people forget. They lose the physical gift cards. They delete the app. They move to a town without a Starbucks. In the financial industry, this forgotten money has a specific name. It is called breakage. Breakage is the digital equivalent of dropping a $20 bill on the sidewalk, but the only person legally allowed to pick it up is the corporation you dropped it in front of. Every year, Starbucks records the amount of money in its ecosystem that it mathematically calculates will never, ever be redeemed. In 2022 alone, Starbucks recognized $212 million in breakage. Think about the margins on that money. To make $212 million in profit selling coffee, Starbucks would have to buy the beans, pay the farmers, ship it across the ocean, roast it, pay a barista to brew it, and pay the rent on the building to serve it. But breakage? Breakage requires 0 beans, 0 labor, 0 rent. It is 100% pure, unadulterated profit. It is free money, generated entirely by the friction of a proprietary digital ecosystem. Roughly 10% of all the money loaded onto Starbucks cards is never spent. The company doesn't just borrow your money for free. In 1 out of 10 cases, they simply keep it forever. When we study massive corporations, we get distracted by the product. We argue over whether the coffee tastes burnt or whether the seasonal drinks are too sugary. The market doesn't care about the taste of the coffee. The coffee is just the delivery mechanism. Starbucks realized that the ultimate survival trait in modern capitalism isn't having the best product. It's controlling the capital. The universal law of business is this. Any company that grows large enough will inevitably evolve into a financial institution. Whether it's Sears creating the Discover card or an airline creating a frequent flyer mile economy, the end state of corporate evolution is always the same. The product is the bait. The financial ecosystem is the trap. Next time you load $20 onto an app just to save 30 seconds in the drive-thru, remember what you are actually doing. You aren't buying coffee. You are funding an unregulated bank.